Hello dudes and dudettes, welcome back to YK Reviews as we're beginning the journey of all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies reviews. Starting off with the original movie of the 1990s, the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. I remember watching it as a kid growing up. It's been such a long time since I watched this movie, but we're gonna dive right into this movie, so let's get straight into it here. Now, if you are new to the channel and you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button so that you're not missing out on any of these videos. We're going to be reviewing every single Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies from the 1990 movies all the way up until the 2007 movie to Michael Bay movie and then the Mutant Mayhem. And at the end of all of this, we're going to be doing a tier ranking video for all the movies coming out. This is all going to be done within the next week or so. So definitely subscribe to the channel if you do like this kind of content and hit that like button so I can see that you are enjoying these types of videos. So right off the bat, the movie opens up with this New York setting, this undertone high crime rate setting. You've got April O'Neil's voiceover reporting about how things are getting stolen right under people's noses, so sort of setting up the kind of vibe and setting and tone that the Turtles are in into this type of environment. And honestly, just right off the bat, like the production value just looks so incredible with that just classic 80s 90s feel to it. Now of course the movie came out in 1990, so obviously it is going to have that kind of feel to it, and showing you the worser areas of New York, not showing like the high rises or anything like that. It's showing you like the worst parts of the city. And so that's where we get introduced to April O'Neil. She's coming out of the news station. She's getting robbed by the Foot Clan. And that's where we sort of get the introduction to the Turtles. Ralph throws his side right into the light. And pitch black, they take out all the goons that are trying to rob April and go back to hide into the sewers, only to realize that Ralph's side left it at the scene basically. And what's really enjoyable about this movie is like just the adjectives that these turtles are using. So like the turtles throwing out so many different types of adjectives whenever like they're doing a mission. Every single turtle will throw an adjective out there of how they felt about it, and Donatello always the one coming up with like the big word adjective that nobody understands. So you sort of get that sense and vibe of the turtles and how they are, because they're still very fresh and new, not more experienced or mature in terms of like the fighting, the crime fighting, that kind of stuff. And so then Ralph leaves the lair, he wants to go watch a movie, and what I just find fascinating and hilarious is that you have somebody in a trench coat and a hat in the theaters and nobody bats an eye. He's literally leaving the theaters. Maybe it's because it's dark and nobody can see his face, but you can tell that he really stands out from the crowd, especially when they're leaving the theaters. It just cracks me up that nobody bats an eye about it. And that's where we get introduced to Casey Jones, the Casey Jones of the movie. And so Ralph stops a mugging, Casey stops Ralph, so like you have this little back and forth. I only wish that we got to see more of that. Like you sort of see them battling one another, throwing some quick lines with one another about each type of weapon, going from like a baseball bat, hockey stick, even cricket, throwing shade to the sport cricket. But we don't really explore that much for the rest of the movie, which I really wished we got to see more of between the two of them, because you didn't really see any more interaction from the two of them together for the rest of the movie. So I kind of wish we got to see more of that. But that's where we get introduced to our Casey Jones of the movie. And so April O'Neil is doing more investigation when it comes to the Foot Clan, where you sort of get this backstory of the Foot Clan and you get introduced to Shredder, the main villain of the movie. So we know that they came from Japan to the US, so they're the ones that are behind the robberies, so they're the ones behind the crime. So April O'Neil is doing more of the investigation. We're seeing how these kids are getting recruited to the Foot Clan. You see these kids in this sort of like underground club scenery. You see these kids training, fighting. You see the introduction, like I mentioned, of Shredder. And because April's doing this investigation, more exposing the Foot Clan to people, Shredder orders the Foot Clan, the ninjas, to go and capture her. So they go attack her on the subway station, and that's when Ralph gets involved, beats up the ninjas, beats up the Foot Clan, only to rescue April and send her back to the lair, where you have one of the ninjas smartly following Ralph to find out where they live. And that's where we get introduced to April meeting the Turtles in a sort of like wholesome moment. She freaks out for like maybe a minute, and then finally Splinter sits her down, calms her down. We sort of get an explanation of the backstory. Obviously, for me as a huge Turtle fan, I know the backstory. I've heard it a million times. The ooze on the Turtles, Master Splinter and his master Yoshi, how he learned Kung Fu and how he was able to train the Turtles to become who they are today. So we get that backstory there. We come to find out that the turtles are 15 years old because it's been 15 years since they got infected by the ooze. And you get to see a little bit of like the relationship developing with April O'Neil and the turtles. The main sticking point is having frozen pizza and them just sitting in her place, eating pizza together, doing sort of impressions, which I think Mikey did spot on when it comes to his impressions. But meanwhile, you've got the Foot Clan back in the lair, kidnapping Splinter, taking him to Shredder. And you have this really great sequence where you see the emotion in the turtles' face. You see they're distraught that Master Splinter is gone. And then you just see their faces when they go back to April to let her know that Splinter is gone. I really like that little sequence there. And so then we get the classic Leo versus Ralph fight. Ralph wanting to get answers, wanting to do more, while Leo just wants to wait till April gets more information and see who can like give them answers to where Splinter's whereabouts is. So you get that classic Leo versus Ralph. You see Michael and Donnie in the background. A little bit of a gripe when it comes to the movie itself is that I wish we got to see more of, first of all, individual personalities with the turtles. Like I wish we got to see more, because Donatello, you don't really get to explore his like intelligence. With Leonardo, you don't really get to explore too much of his leadership. Michelangelo, you kind of got to see more of like the funny lines, the quips, but we don't get to see a lot more of their personalities. And also the camaraderie between the four of them together, we didn't get to see too much of that in this movie either. But that's sort of like a minor nitpick when it comes to the actual movie, or when it comes to like the turtles themselves. And so because Ralph takes off, he's on the rooftop, you get this brilliant sequence of Ralph fighting all the ninjas. Now for me, I remember seeing the 2003 Turtles series with the roles being reversed, where it's like Leo taking on all the Foot Clan ninjas and getting thrown into the window of April's antique shop, whereas this time it's Raphael doing it. And when it comes to like the fight choreography too, like it's a bit clunky. It's not as smooth as like you have in, for example, Mission Impossible or John Wick or Winter Soldier or that kind of stuff. Well, obviously it's more modern in terms of Hollywood fight sequence there, but here it feels a little bit clunky because of that whole outfits and the stunt doubles and that kind of stuff. But the fight sequence, especially with like Raphael using his shell, using like his fast maneuvering to like beat the ninjas, I really enjoyed that sequence. And then once Raphael gets thrown into like the shop, and then you have that whole battle in terms of the antique shop, you got all the turtles using their weapons, using their skills, fighting all the ninjas. Really great sequence when it comes to that. They're really great in terms of working together. But again, some of the fight sequences are a little bit clunky. I'm just guessing because of the costume. And then Casey comes in, and you have that great sequence where Casey and the turtles working together, beating up the ninjas, escaping through the fire trap. I can't remember what exactly it was called, but they managed to escape, going to a farmhouse to recover. And honestly, another thing that just cracked me up too is that because of Ralph's beating that he took, they put him in the bathtub, but the way they positioned him, I'm sorry, but like you have your brother beaten severely in the bathtub where he's probably like head first, stomach first, just there. All you see is his leg and his arms just hanging out of the tub. I'm sorry, that just cracks me up so much, the way they positioned him. But everybody's just there recovering. And so then we get a little bit of the relationship developing between Casey and April, where they sort of like hate each other. Then the next minute you've got Casey rubbing April's shoulders. Only little nitpick when it comes to that is that wasn't really explored too much either, because you've got them just bickering with one another, but within 30 seconds, like I said, Casey's just massaging her shoulders. So I kind of wish we got to see that a little bit more developed. And then we got to see the turtles as one, meditating, being able to hear Splinter. We also got to hear like the backstory with Splinter, which I really liked, where you got to see him, really a sad backstory. You got to see him learning his martial arts because of his master Yoshi, him being in like this cage as a rat, training and learning the ninjutsu style with Master Yoshi, only to find out that Oroku Saki, where we later come to find out where he is actually the Shredder, but Oroku Saki and Master Yoshi having this bickering feud with one another. Oroku Saki ends up killing the love of Yoshi's life, ends up killing Master Yoshi. We get to see Splinter scratching Shredder's face, only for Shredder to cut one of Splinter's ear off. So you really got like this really sad emotional backstory. You got to explore more with Splinter, and you got to see him having that connection with the four turtles when they were doing that meditation. And what I really liked with Splinter is the fact that he wasn't really a side character. He wasn't put on the back burner. He was like a main focus in the movie when he was being captured, when he was helping that kid Danny or Dan or whatever he wants to be called, in like helping him see the light. So I really liked what they were doing with Splinter, and especially his scene in the third act against Shredder. Really great moment with Splinter. And so as we get to the third act, we get to see the turtles returning to New York City to take on the Shredder. So you've got Casey and that kid infiltrating the Foot Clan. You see the right hand man Tatsu taking on Casey, and Casey being able to just whack him with one of his weapons, and they are able to help Splinter escape, and they take Splinter away with them. And even Casey, like, he had some great moments especially in the third act. He really got a chance to shine with like his use of weapons, his battle skills. So he had some great moments in there, and obviously the moment where he killed Shredder at the end with the garbage truck, that was some great moments with Casey. So you have the turtles returning to their old lair, taking on the Foot Clan, and the use of the weapons that they had, the fight sequence. It was a really great battle between the Foot and then the turtles, and then they go and take on the Shredder, and you can really see the inexperience and not immaturity but lack of maturity when it comes to fighting against the Shredder. Shredder's able to just take him out, and I really like the little quips again with Mikey and Donnie doing rock paper scissors on who's going to be next to take on the Shredder. So that was really great to see. I love the presence of the Shredder in this movie. Really maniacal, really menacing, and he's able to just take on these turtles so easily. And that's where we get again Splinter coming in, having his time to shine, taking on the Shredder, ending up throwing him off of the building into the garbage truck. And like I mentioned, Casey just turning on the garbage truck to end up killing him in front of everybody, basically, so committing murder. But that was just a really great sequence there, a really fun, enjoyable movie, with Splinter having just a great line at the end there. I made a funny! Just a great wholesome moment with the turtles and Splinter. But overall, when it comes to the movie, just a fun, entertaining, enjoyable movie. It's definitely got that cheesy, corny 90s vibe to it, but it's so entertaining and so fun. A really great movie that more or less does hold up today, and a great movie when it comes to like turtles, because I'll be honest, I'm going to say this right now, I feel like the turtles being used here is a lot better than the ones that were used in the Michael Bay movie. Now I'll talk about those when I review those movies, but I really liked how the turtles were interpreted in this format, in this movie. Like, there were just some great moments there. A really great movie to grow up with. Like I said, I watched this movie when I was a kid. It's been so long since I've seen this movie, but I just had such a huge smile on my face rewatching this movie again. It's one of those movies that you just enjoy so much. Again, some nitpicks here and there, and obviously it's going to be a lot harder when you've got like these stunt doubles wearing these costumes. Obviously the costumes look great at times, but you can kind of tell more or less in other certain moments. But overall, a really fun movie. A great way to kick off the start of the movie franchise for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So if you have seen the movie, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Did you enjoy the movie? Have you seen the movie? What you thought about it? Let me know all in the comment section down below. But that about wraps it up for the first review of this series of reviews for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. So I thank you so much for watching and listening, and definitely keep an eye out on the channel. The part 2, the Secret of the Ooze movie, will be coming out either later on today or sometime tomorrow. So definitely, again, subscribe if you are new so that you don't miss out on those reviews. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. This is YK Reviews. Peace.